There is a version of you that is dying right now. Not your body, not your future, something much older. Something that has quietly controlled your life for years. And here's the strange part. It doesn't want to leave peacefully. The closer you get to becoming who you're meant to be, the louder it becomes. It fights because it knows its time is running out. Maybe you set a deadline. Maybe you finally decided there was no turning back. Maybe you stopped negotiating with the life you've secretly outgrown. Now every step forward feels strangely harder than expected, almost like something invisible keeps pulling you back. But what if that resistance isn't a warning? That panic in your chest, the racing thoughts, the sudden urge to abandon everything. Most people think those feelings mean they're making the wrong decision. They're wrong, because panic doesn't always appear before failure. Sometimes it appears right before an old identity loses control. Look closely at what keeps showing up in your mind. Is it really your voice, or is it the version of you that survived by expecting the worst? For years it whispered, "Wait a little longer. Don't risk it. Stay where it's safe." It called fear wisdom, and comfort became a prison you stopped noticing. But the moment you committed to a different future, you sent a message, not just to the world, but to yourself. You quietly declared that you're no longer available for a smaller life. And that's exactly when the battle began. Not because your future is rejecting you, but because your survival self finally realized something terrifying. Its reign is ending. Let's call this part of you what it really is, your survival self. The version built from every disappointment, every rejection, every moment you learned that staying small felt safer than taking a risk. It isn't evil. In fact, it saved you more times you realize. Its only job was to protect you from pain, even if that meant protecting you from your own potential. But here's the problem. Survival and fulfillment are not the same thing. The habits that kept you alive yesterday can quietly stop you from becoming who you're capable of being tomorrow. So when you chose a different future, your survival self didn't celebrate, it panicked. Because every courageous decision you make feels like a threat to the identity that's been in charge for years. And then comes the hardest part. Days pass, maybe weeks. You expected something outside of you to change, but nothing does. No new opportunity, no breakthrough, no dramatic sign telling you that you made the right choice. The silence almost feels louder than the fear. But think about a seed. For a long time, the surface looks exactly the same. The real work happens where nobody can see it. Strong roots always grow before visible growth. The same is true for you. Transformation doesn't begin in your bank account, your career, or other people's opinions. It begins in your identity. Most people quit here. Not because the dream was impossible, but because they demanded external proof before allowing themselves to believe. But maybe that's the test. Can you remain the person you've decided to become, even while your external reality still looks exactly the same? Your greatest victory isn't getting the opportunity. It isn't making more money. It isn't hearing everyone finally believe in you. Your greatest victory is this: standing in uncertainty without letting uncertainty define who you are. Because belief that depends on evidence isn't really belief, it's simply a reaction. Real belief exists before the evidence arrives. This is where almost everyone turns back. They mistake silence for failure. They mistake waiting for rejection. They mistake discomfort for danger. But silence doesn't always mean nothing is happening. Sometimes silence is simply the space where your identity finishes becoming strong enough to hold the life you've asked for. The moment you stop asking the outside world for permission to believe in yourself, you become free. Your worth is no longer negotiated by circumstances.
And that's the moment your survival self finally loses its grip. Not because your life suddenly became easier, but because fear is no longer making your decisions. Remember the version of you we met at the beginning, the one that seemed to be dying? It was never your future that was disappearing. It was the old identity, the one that believed safety was the highest goal, the one that kept waiting for proof before allowing itself to move. So if nothing around you has changed yet, but something inside you refuses to go back, don't be discouraged. That may be the strongest sign you're already transforming. If this found you in the middle of your own silence, your own waiting, your own becoming, subscribe to Quiet Alignment. We'll keep doing this inner work together, one truth at a time.